Hi, I'm Emyle Watkins, and this is the WBFO Disabilities Beat. Today, WBFO, with our partners at Public Health Watch and Inside Climate News, released an investigation showing that the Goodyear chemical plant in Niagara Falls has been releasing a dangerous carcinogen into the air at a rate 1,000% higher than what the state now considers safe to breathe. On this week's Beat, I share part of a recent conversation I had with my co-author, Jim Morris, about the story we've published today. This conversation has been edited for length and clarity, but you can read our report and listen to the entire conversation on our website at wbfo.org.
Just a little bit of history about the plant first. That plant was opened in 1946, right after World War II, and initially they made PVC, polyvinyl chloride, the stuff that we all know about in our garden hoses and vinyl siding and all that. And then in 1957, they opened what they called the rubber chemicals division of the plant. And what they made was something called Nalax. Nalax is what they call an antioxidant for tires. Keeps tires from cracking in the sun, in the extreme cold, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very important additive in Goodyear's tire making process. So since 1957, when they started making this stuff, they have used orthotoluidine, which is kind of a smelly, yellowish liquid, to make this product that they call Nalax, this antioxidant. The vinyl side of the plant closed in 1996. They just shut it down. So the only thing that's operating right now is the rubber chemicals division. And that is where they are still using orthotoluidine.
And orthotoluidine is a known carcinogen that causes bladder cancer, correct?
It is a known bladder carcinogen, but it was suspected of causing, in fact, it was known to cause bladder cancer in laboratory animals as far back as the 1950s. So it's been pretty thoroughly studied for more than half a century.
Your previous reporting focused on bladder cancer within the factory, and now we have some new documents that tell us it might be extending outside the factory. These documents at the center of our report, which were obtained through a public records request and provided to us, are from the Department of Environmental Conservation, or DEC, to Goodyear. What was the DEC telling Goodyear in 2023?
So in July of 2023, the Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, issued what's called a notice of violation to Goodyear. And the gist of it was that the DEC concluded that a couple of important pollution control devices were not working properly at the plant and had not been working properly, probably for a period of years. And these devices were supposed to capture orthotoluidine, this very potent bladder carcinogen, as well as another chemical called DPA. Also has health effects, probably not quite as potent as ortho-T. So the DEC cited Goodyear for allowing a lot more orthotoluidine to get into the atmosphere, in other words, into the community, putting the public at risk, than they were supposed to be. And again, they pinned it on these two pollution control devices that just simply weren't working properly. And the most striking thing is that the department said that Goodyear plant was putting out levels of orthotoluidine into the atmosphere 3 orders of magnitude, or 1,000% higher than what the state considers to be safe for the public. And you don't see figures like that very often.
We know that this potentially goes back about 15 years, correct?
Yeah, at least. We're saying at least. It's one of these faulty pollution control devices was installed back in 1992, another back in 2001. The 15 years goes back to 2009 when they were issued a state permit. It's hard to say. I think it's safe to assume this has been going on for a long time.
And you've been looking into what the DEC has done to hold Goodyear accountable to reducing these emissions. And what did you find, or what did the DEC tell you?
Well, the DEC gave us a statement saying that they're investigating, to this day, they're investigating this situation, and they care about the health of the people of Niagara Falls, but they really didn't tell us a whole lot more about their timing. They didn't answer a question. One of the direct questions we had is, what are you going to do to make these emissions go down? What are you going to make Goodyear do to stop or at least reduce these emissions? And when are you going to do it? And we didn't get an answer for that question. We got a response along the lines of, well, we are going to do something. It's still under investigation. And we also didn't get a response to a question about whether the state has notified the community.
Why does this story have relevance, or why does it matter beyond just the residents of Niagara Falls? Why does it matter to New York State or New Yorkers as a whole?
Well, I think it raises questions about how serious a regulator the DEC is.
Something that, as a disability reporter, that strikes me about this story is that a lot of times people are very afraid to become disabled, but they also distance themselves from disability by thinking it's something that you're either born with or happens to you through like something very sudden, very tragic. People don't always think about disability as being something that can happen to you very slowly by something in your community that you might not even be aware of. I'm wondering, like, what was the reaction from these workers that we know got bladder cancer from this factory, finding out that they now had a disability because of something they didn't know was hurting them?
The workers I came to know, the workers and retirees I came to know, were just infuriated by what had happened to them, especially when they learned that the maker of this chemical, one of the main manufacturers of this chemical, was DuPont. And to be clear, Goodyear didn't make orthotoluidine. It used orthotoluidine to make this product called Nalax. So they would buy orthotoluidine from DuPont, mostly DuPont, and a couple of other suppliers. So, and the workers were told for many years, stuff's harmless. Yeah, it's smelly. It's kind of nasty, but it's not going to hurt you. And when they would get bladder cancer, when they would be first diagnosed, just a complete sense of betrayal. And the other thing I want to emphasize is, as I was researching my book, The Cancer Factory, I learned a lot about the disease itself, bladder cancer. And it's one of the sneakiest, most insidious forms of cancer. You can have it, you can have a tumor removed and think you're fine for 5 years, for 10 years, no symptoms. Okay, they got it all. And then something happens. You go through one of your annual cystoscopies and the doctor says, uh-oh, there's a growth. And then the cycle starts all over again, and it can come back 2, 3, 4 times. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I don't want to get too graphic here, but what happens to you when you get bladder cancer is just grotesque. It's like something out of a horror movie. And again, I won't go into detail, but there's no good kind of cancer, of course, but this is an especially vicious form of the disease.
You can listen to the Disabilities Beat segment on demand, view a transcript and plain language description for every episode on our website at WBFO.org. I'm Emyle Watkins. Thanks for listening.